Um, if nobody has any corrections for the minutes, could I ask for a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes.
Okay, Bob and Kathy second. So everybody in favor of approving the minutes? Anybody not in favor or have any issues? No. Okay, then the minutes have passed. Okay. Inspection reports. There was a report that went out regarding the City of Reading Health inspection, not the inspections. I guess this came in from the fire department and EMS, etc. Is there any, Michael? You submitted that. Do you have any comments about what you've submitted to us?
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yep. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure. For that part, no, but for the EMS report, do you want me to just continue with that, or because I have something for
I
this?
have one question on what you printed out. You had City Council, when I met, gave them this State of the Union on the Board of Health, so to speak. They were very interesting in having us track and discuss the opioid and the Narcan. And you had mentioned the numbers for May, June, July. Can we going forward get those kind of in some way so that we can, or you can probably just answer this, whether things are increasing, decreasing, staying the same? Is there any seasonality to it? Just
it does. I'm sorry, Doctor.
The trend. Yeah.
It seems like we do in the summertime, the spring, summer, fall get a lot more, but we're sadly averaging about 30 to 40 cases of Narcan incidents a month, and what the board has to remember is that's our ambulance service covering. There's about 30 to 40 calls that we do not get to a month that's covered by another service. So we don't necessarily know what they do on those calls. So there could be 5 or 10 more, but we don't know for certain. But I mean, on average, the city handles roughly to 30 to 40 Narcan events a month, meaning that we administer Narcan, whether it's the engines or the ambulance is doing it.
Now, when you say someone else is covering it, you mean just a private citizen who might happen to have Narcan, or another agency that responds to health emergencies?
Another agency. Usually it would be Western Berks or Reading Hospitals, ambulance, St. Joe's. Like they sometimes cover. It's kind of we have so many 911 calls for assistance that happen at a time, and then we don't have any EMS units available, so they'll send one of the neighboring ones in, and vice versa. We're almost at the point where I think last month we literally went out 40 times and they came in 50. So it's almost an even trade-off, if you will.
Oh, okay.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, right. All right. What else do you have to add to the meeting from your department?
Okay, I'll keep this as quick as I can. I know you got a lot of things to cover. So, COVID cases obviously are very, very infrequent for us, at least presenting to us as anything. I keep track of all our departments, cases, and we don't really have that many, maybe like one every couple weeks. Hospitals, obviously, and the doctors here on the group can, and all of you who have done any time in medicine know that, the post-Christmas rush of the pneumonias, the bronchitis, all that, it seems to be getting a little bit stepped up this year, meaning that it's not like after Christmas it's starting now. We're starting to see, I would say, the hospitals get a little more overwhelmed, and obviously with the mental health issues in the community, those are also a lot of patients as well. Last thing I just wanted to touch on quickly, one of the goals I have for next year, and we're going to do is some of the more senior members of the board may remember the drug droperidol.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
Let's go. Let's go another name. Was that Haldol?
It's in a similar vein, but it was primarily used for, in the good old days, primarily used for like post-operative nausea.
Right. Okay. Then I'm thinking it's different.
But Doctor, you are correct. It's very similar to a Haldol type medicine. Across the state Department of Health for EMS, they've been realizing that it works pretty well. It doesn't have near the side effects that, say, one of the other meds we carry, which unfortunately is a hot button issue for across the country, is ketamine. We wanted to get something a little more, I don't want to say toned down, but something that fits the appropriate, the appropriateness of if we have someone who's agitated or upset and we have to, sedate them. We want to have something that's just a little bit safer. We will still carry ketamine, but we will be bringing droperidol in the probably by February. And if anyone's interested, we do annual training on, when you sedate someone and how you take care of that person. And those charts are heavily scrutinized by myself and our cohort of medical directors from the emergency department at Tower Health.
Okay, that's interesting.
Any questions?
Yeah, I looked it up. It's anapsine was the trade name for it. I remember that now.
So,
all right.
If Ms. Smith, if you wish, I can email you our statistics for every month if you want.
That would be fabulous. Thank you.
Okay, shall do. Thank you all for your time.
Okay. Terrific. Thank you. Inspection reports. Do we have a report from the health inspector today?
Yeah, we did 53 inspections since the last meeting. Our focus right now is actually going business to business because we were so far behind and so many businesses changed hands. So we're going business to business to make sure everybody has the correct permits and we have the correct records on file, which is very time consuming. So that's where we're at right now.
Okay. Yeah, I know you said there's always been a huge turnover in businesses. I don't quite understand how all these businesses can turn over so often.
And there still is. I mean, a lot of times by the time we even get to a place, it's changed hands already.
Huh. Do you think some of these aren't legit, that they're, using them as money launder, or that they're
it would be speculation, but a lot of them seem to be food stamp factories. They're cashing in food stamps for cash, 50 cents on the dollar.
Oh,
so they either make their money or they get caught doing something wrong and they move on and they put it in somebody else's name.
So when a food stamp is given out, it's not particular to that person. It's like currency. They could give it to someone else to spend.
No, it's on a card, like a credit card, but they'll just go in and the credit cards are run through a machine just like they would be anywhere else. So they'll run the card through the machine for, say, $100 and they'll give the person $50.
Okay.
It's actually very big business.
Oh, that's interesting. All right. So much for that. How about, do we have any report today on lead abatement? Is Gerald here? I think I saw him here.
Hello.
Somewhere. Oh, there he is.
How are you? Jerome Melendez with Lead Hazard Control. I'm the program manager now.
Just to be, I want to make sure I'm got this correct. I wrote your name down incorrectly last time, and it looks like it's truncated. Your first name is Jarrell. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Jarel.
You got it.
Okay, good. I want to make sure I'm addressing you appropriately. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you. So I did just compile. I'm not too sure. I'm assuming you all just want like a report on how we're doing. So to date, we have completed 16 units, made 16 units lead free, and there's 14 in progress. So hopefully by February, we should have at least 30 units done.
I know when this program first started, there were issues where there weren't enough people who were trained and certified to do this work. Is that up to speed now, that that's not a limitation in getting the work done?
So in between that, since when Jeff was last here, we had a lot of issues, but most of it was for the purchasing policy. We have plenty of contractors, and now that we're getting caught up, I'm falling into an issue where we need more referrals. So.
Oh, okay, good. Michelle, did you have something you wanted to mention?
I just was going to say, Jarrell, could you give a brief background on what the program is for some of the newer members that weren't here when we got the program started?
All right, sure. The city received a $3.5 million HUD grant to remediate lead from over 150 homes. And we have until February 2025 to try to make that benchmark. What we do in the program for qualifying families, we test the entire home for the presence of lead in paint, water, soil, and dust. And if we find it, which we usually always do. We completely remediate it, or we contractors to completely remediate it free of cost to the owner, the tenants, anybody involved. This is all paid through the HUD funding.
Could you refresh my memory? Because I think we did discuss this before, but how are the people who require you to go in and test? How do you find those people, or how do those people's names get to you?
So a lot of times we get referrals from the community health center that the parents come in, they test their child's blood capillary levels, and at that point they tell the parents to either reach out to us directly or they give us like their name and number. We go to these events, we try to just put the word out and get applicants that way as well.
I saw something interesting the other day. I read it was an article titled, like, they were talking about one of the biggest contaminants from lead that nobody talks about yet is ancient buried telephone cables as a source of lead. You'd think if they're way under the ground, and would it matter? Is that something that you come across in your bumped into in your lead abatement discussions or stuff you've read?
No, but the only thing I could think of maybe is due to like water irrigating the lead components, and maybe that leaching into the soil, and then the soil would then become contaminated because we do have contaminated soil in Berks County. So I've already had some of our homes tested. The soil levels were above what the EPA allows. So it's definitely in the soil.
Have you had any issues with people renting, with working with the landlords on abating those rentals?
No, thankfully, because we pay for it. I could guarantee you if we didn't have to pay for it, we put the responsibility on them, it would be a lot of kickback.
Mm-hmm.
But all of our families thus far, the landlords have been more than willing to let us change their windows and paint their house and fix their house.
You ever find that, like, if they're a cluster of homes, like in a certain row somewhere in a certain street, and you're finding it in 2 or 3 homes, would you necessarily then say, geez, if these 3 homes in a row have them, we ought to be inspecting all the homes? I mean, but you could go down that rabbit hole and end up inspecting the whole city, I guess.
Yeah, so some different counties, they have it written into the lead ordinance that you can't get a rental license unless you get lead cleared. So we certainly aren't there at that point in the city of Reading to even consider that, especially with staffing and just trying to get this program off the ground, But that's something we can definitely consider in the future if we're more, fully staffed and,
All right. Well, thank you.
You're
The MS updates, I guess we've already talked about. On the topic of old business, I'm not sure. I don't know that we have any discussion today about the health literacy program. Michelle informed me that they want to come back in February and give a little presentation. So I don't think we have anything on that today. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. Dr. Wang, could I pick your brain a second about another issue? I personally am struggling with the question, should I bother to get the RSV vaccine? My wife's family doctor told her, and I've lived under this notion that anybody who's not a kid anymore has clearly run into RSV in their lifetime, and so there's no need to get it. But if that logic were true, there wouldn't be any senior citizens coming down with serious RSV infections. So somewhere, one of those two thought processes don't quite meld. So I guess RSV, I mean, it's not like measles where if you get it once, you can't possibly get it again. I mean, can you shed any light on that?
Yeah, all these respiratory illnesses, that's like, a little bit in the vein of saying, well, I got COVID once, so, I'm good, or I had the flu, this season, so I don't need a flu vaccine. Respiratory viruses are different than something like measles. And just like older adults have been recommended to get a pneumococcal pneumonia vaccine booster, or say I just finished my second shingles shot, there are vaccines for things that we recommend because you have waning immunity to things that you were well protected against when you're a little kid. And you can get RSV, even kids can get it every single season. I have seen kids who get it twice in one season. So I think the calculation on the RSV vaccine was that for certain people over 65, they're again at high risk of winding up in the hospital or an ICU if they get RSV. And so it's worth discussing, you know, considering with your doctor whether you should get that vaccine. So, I mean, I think that's how I would explain it to someone, to you or to anyone else. So I think, you know, does every older adult need one? Probably not, but can we predict which ones are most likely? Obviously, people with underlying respiratory conditions or CHF or things like that would be at the highest risk. And it's not clear yet, because this is the new vaccine, would people be recommended to get an RSV vaccine again in 5 years or 10 years? You know, this is sort of a new arena for that. Certainly for pregnant women is another category that they're recommending the RSV vaccine because it conveys some protection to their infants. So that we're trying to highly recommend. You know, I think the problems are then, you know, availability, insurance coverage, sort of everything that happens with a new vaccine. And then, you know, just sort of general skepticism. But I do think it's you know, if the ACIP and the CDC are recommending it, I don't think it's overkill. You know, I think that you know, I would go along with their recommendation, and that's the argument I would use, is that there's certain things that later in life we become at high risk of winding up in the hospital with again, and you know, pneumonia and respiratory illnesses are one of them.
Yeah, I was curious to see when I saw a discussion on the RSV, they're suggesting that this will probably be an every other year shot. But yeah, come back next year and see what they say.
Yeah, I mean, I think that certainly if you have very high risk family members, I'd recommend they get it this season, you know, the first season of the vaccine, because I think
years ago, when I think they first came out, I was probably just when I turned 60, so it was probably 10 years ago. I remember getting a pneumococcal vaccine, and I had to get one year and then wait a year to get the second. So do people need that renewed? Does a person like myself need to consider getting another one of those, or were there better ones that came out? I know the original shingle shots were not so great, and they came out with one that actually worked.
Yeah, you know, I think there's also this year on the market some new pneumococcal vaccine that they're recommending to replace the old pneumococcal 23. And I have to admit that being clinically a pediatrician, I don't know if you've had 23, what the interval recommendation is to get this new Prevnar 20. Pneumococcal 20, but I can look it up and get back to you. But
what I need to do is go back to my family doctor and have him look in his records, and he
yeah, I mean, I think that certainly some of them are going to be recommended to repeat, but you know, it isn't sort of like everybody needs a new pneumococcal vaccine. It's that they're replacing this older one, you know, with a newer one.
I used to see a lot of patients with shingles, and let me tell you, anybody here hasn't gotten a shingle shot, go get it. You do not want shingles. I used to see people come in with weird thoracic pain, and I'd say, you know, you don't have a rash, do you? And then the next day they'd call me and say, yes, I got that rash. You know.
Yeah.
And some of them, I saw a few people with post-herpetic neuralgias that, you know, pain just didn't let up for months. It was like, you do not.
I kind of heard the horror stories about it, but that was my motivation, was post-herpetic neuralgia. Amen. Was a good motivation to get that vaccine. So I think, yeah, so that's my take on the new pneumococcal and RSV vaccines.
All right. Well, enough of the vaccine commercials then, I guess. Thank you for that information. No problem. The brain. I don't see many clinicians. I see my cardiologist and urologist. That's about it anymore. So, all right. Is there anything else for the good of the meeting before we talk about the meeting schedule? Anything else anybody has they'd like to offer?
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up the inclusion in the budget of the 2 social work positions via the police department. They're like emergency response. Michelle,
Right.
do we have any details? Is there any like outlines of the job descriptions, the supervision structure, the funding stream, or anything like that? I think that, this is the one thing that the city council is working toward, that's under our purview a little bit. And I, for one, would like to know a little bit more about how that's all going to work out, given, being a social worker. Just kind of like, I just have questions that I'd like to get a little bit more in-depth information to possibly make some recommendations or considerations that the board might or that the council might structure of this.
Yeah,
Are
I
these
can,
social workers that will work under the EMS umbrella?
No,
they're
it's with the
police.
police department. Yeah, so essentially they'd be
police
they'd be
department.
emergency crisis response. So instead of police showing up to support
Right.
maybe EMS staff, it would be a
Oh.
social worker.
Right.
So there's pilot programs all over the country, but I just have a little bit of questions because they're looking to hire two or to start with two. And 110,000 people, 9,000 EMS calls a month or a year in Berks. I mean, I just want to see kind of what their thoughts are and just see from my perspective. I used to do crisis. I used to work forensics. I used to do all that kind of stuff. So I have, I would like to be able to just see what's going on and see if I could provide some insights to council.
Sure, so
Yeah, I'm sure somebody is looking.
I can ask the police department to provide what they have so far, and if you're interested, I can invite them to the February meeting.
I think it would be good for the board to hear kind of what's happening in that space, because that space is going to overlap with the Narcan space, mental health, drug and alcohol emergency response type stuff. We're going to see some stuff kind of coming together in that area.
Okay, that's an interesting development. Yeah, well, that's something for us to discuss at further meetings. I'd be interested in knowing more about that. All right, well, thank you. As far as the 2024 meeting schedule, I have no reason not to just keep it on, just rolling the way it is. Unless, we might find that one of those falls on a wrong day, like election day or something, in which case then we can change it. But did you have any thoughts on that, Michelle, or had you looked forward at the dates to see if there'd be any problems? Or
Yeah, I haven't looked all the way through, but it should not be a
Okay.
problem. Which is
Okay.
why we start in February instead of January, because then we miss November with the election.
Oh,
So we'll do
all right.
October
never
and
thought-
December.
Okay.
So time still good, first Tuesday, 4 o'clock.
That's fine.
Everybody,
Yeah, and I think doing this
Keep
by
with-
Zoom, I don't know that we'd all be here. It's a hardship asking Dr. Wong to schlop in, and some of the other, people, they're not all sitting in City Hall. So I think this works well for everybody.
I think so.
All right. All right. Well, thank everybody for their participation. We'll see you in 2 months. Have a nice holiday season. Be
What do you-
safe.
Do you have a date for it? February?
The next one will be February 6th.
Okay.
That's what she wrote down. I didn't look at the calendar, but I'm sure Michelle is. She's so good. She never makes a mistake.
That sounds like the first Tuesday in February.
I wish I never
Yes,
made mistakes.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. We'll see you in a couple of months. Have a happy holiday.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
See you, folks.
See ya.